Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Pippin Ballers. As you guys will probably already know, Jurgen Klinsmann is gone as the Korean national team manager. Chung Bong-gyu announced yesterday. Personally, finally, we were able to hear the KFA president speak, although it was another disappointing interview from him where he deflected all blame and it did sound like he was not going to resign as the president of the KFA. But regardless, the KFA has a big task on their hands right now, and that is to correctly select Klinsmann's successor, because we all know that Klinsmann's selection was a ultimate catastrophe and calamity. So this is going to be quite an informal video. Earlier today, I posted from the Fighting Stripes football account. Give us your thoughts on who you want to see as the next Korean national team manager, and we're going to make a video on it. So we got a lot of responses. Thank you to everyone who responded. Quick shout outs, Footy Search Football, that's Aaron, one of our contributors, TV, Joao, Thinkerballer, Dave, Jesus, Daniel, HK, Melinda, Thomas, Kevin, Angel, Dr. Cho, Itadakimasu, and Michael. Everyone, thank you so much for participating. Basically, I wanted you guys to group it into three categories broadly. Foreign manager that was a realistic option for the KFA, a foreign manager that you dream of one day managing the Korean national team, and then finally a domestic manager that you guys would like to see. So I went ahead and looked at the responses and organized it into a quick spreadsheet here. Like I said, the three categories: foreign realistic, foreign dream, and domestic. In green, I love those suggestions. In yellow, they're okay, or I don't really know about the managers. And red is a big no thank you for me. And before I start talking about these candidates, guys, I want you to know that this is my own individual opinion. I definitely want to thank everyone for sharing their favorite candidates, and this is by no means to disrespect your opinions. This is what just I personally think is going to be a good or bad candidate for the KFA. And so my criteria in terms of deciding who's good and who's bad, I wanted to see at least two of the three categories be fulfilled in a particular candidate. So firstly, I want them to have a strong personality and the ability to control the locker room. With Jurgen Klinsmann, he was a very nice guy, but perhaps he was too nice. We heard multiple reports coming out of Qatar from the latest Asian Cup that there were just no rules, there was no structure. The players were given too much freedom, and that was a big factor as to why we saw Ping Pong Gate and the drama between Sunny and Igangin, because there were no rules as to when the team was supposed to eat together in terms of the time, the location. Everyone was free to do what they wanted to do. And if the manager is not setting those boundaries, that structure, the parameters for a team to operate in, it's going to cause a lot of chaos and a lot of trouble. And I think the best person that we've seen in the KFA in terms of a man management personality style is Gus Hiddink, who led the 2002 national team. When you hear any of his former players talk about him, he was so good at maintaining order, maintaining chemistry, and just good feelings within the national team. And I want the new manager to be able to do that. They need to have a strong, hopefully charismatic personality and be someone who is both strict when needed, but also cares so much about his players. So that's criteria number one. Criteria number two, strictly in terms of the football, I want them to have a really clear football philosophy and preferably attacking football. That's just me, guys. If you guys have watched any of the videos that I've made, you know that I'm a sucker for attacking football. I love the football that we see with Tottenham right now, with Ange Postecoglou coming in, the football of Pep Guardiola, Jurgen Klopp. Really, these types of football is teams proactively controlling the games rather than reacting to what the other team is doing. We have our own style of play, and no matter who we are against, we are unafraid to implement that style of play and attack the teams with courage and bravery and a strong building up from the back and license to express your creativity in the final third. Um, of all these managers, some are counter-attacking based and some are more possession based. And I want a good mix of both, but more towards the attacking possession-based football so that we can build the foundation that Paolo Bento left us. And finally, on criteria number three, and this is impossible to know really unless until you interview and research each individual candidate, and that's the job of the KFA. But I want them to be willing to live in Korea, respect and learn about our culture, and have no prior issues with professionalism. And again, I hate to keep going back to Jurgen Klinsmann, but he was unwilling to live in Korea. He was a lot of the time he was spending in his home in California, and he was just unwilling to scout K-League players. And whether you like it or not, the K-League is a big foundation of our Korean national team, especially in the defense, the spine of the defense, and the CDM position, which was our greatest weakness this tournament. Klinsmann or whoever the manager is has to keep going to these the K-League games to see the undiscovered talents or which players are on form, and that's going to help the national team. But Klinsmann didn't do that, and that's why we saw the likes of Lee Gi-jae and Park Yong-woo being selected and started in the Asian Cup, and that was a big reason for our demise in that tournament. So yeah, I want the new coach to be willing to live in Korea and also respect our culture and learn about our culture. So many times we told Klinsmann and the public, the media, we expressed it as well. You know, we understand your point of view and why you're smiling, but as fans, it's not great to see you smiling after games, especially after ties against Malaysia, the loss against Jordan, where he was grinning from ear to ear and congratulating the Jordanian manager. There's a difference between professionalism and respecting the opponent and looking like you're happy after losing in the semifinals of the Asian Cup. That's just one thing. Um, there are many, many other instances where it seemed like Jurgen Klinsmann was not respecting the Korean fans, both their desires and what they wanted to see from a guy who really is representing the Korean national team. And I want the new manager to be able to um, be, you know, a representative of our national team, a guy who is knowledgeable about Korean culture, and if he isn't knowledgeable, then willing to learn. And finally, again, no prior issues with professionalism. In terms of Jurgen Klinsmann, when he came in, we all knew the red flags that were there. And even with Germany, guys, the World Cup in 2006, it was in Germany. He was the manager of the German national team, and the German media were criticizing him for going back to California too often. And then in 2019, when he was the manager with Hertha Berlin, he lasted like maybe 2 months. He resigned in a Facebook Live. There were so many red flags there in terms of professionalism, just taking the job seriously. Again, he was making regular appearances with ESPN during his tenure as Korean national team manager. Really, for our new manager, none of that. They're 100% committed to the job, and they are very much professional, like Bento was. So that's the criteria briefly that I assess these candidates on. So let's jump right into it, guys. I guess starting with the domestic managers. So like I said, green, I love those candidates. Yellow, they're okay, or I don't really know about them. And then red is a big no thank you. Starting with red, Kim Do-hoon was a big no thank you for me. He was the former manager of Ulsan Hyundai. He never actually won a K-League title with Ulsan Hyundai. Only after Hong Myung-bo took over did Ulsan start to win these K-League titles. He's actually, I think in Korea, is known as a serial choke artist because he had the lead with Ulsan and then kept choking it to Jeonbuk. I think he had a brief stint in Singapore that didn't go well. All in all, I think he's still a decent manager, but definitely not Kanti quality. Kim Pang-gon and Hong Myung-bo, I both really like, but they're not the level of Lee Jong-yo and Kim Ki-dong. Starting with Kim Pam-gon, he was a great technical director for us. He was the guy that helped select Paolo Bentu way back in 2018, and he's doing good things with the Malaysian national team. And when you hear him talk about South Korean football, you can really sense the fondness and the affection for our country's football. And I think that he would be a good candidate, but he doesn't have the experience or the career achievements that I think is good enough to be the Korean national team at this moment. Now, if he goes on to do really wonderful things with Malaysia, starts winning trophies, going deep into major tournaments, then my mind could be changed. But for now, he's strictly in the B tier for me. Hong Myung-bo, guys, I think this might be a controversial one. I was really debating between green and yellow for Hong Myung-bo. He had stints with the Korean national team already. Way back in 2014, he was our manager when the World Cup was in Brazil. Unfortunately, that was one of our worst World Cups in history. I think he's improved a lot since then. He's won a couple of K-League titles with Ulsan Hyundai. He's very, very charismatic. Being a member of the 2002 World Cup, he's going to carry a lot of respect as well from the players. And I think that, in terms of criteria number one, he's perfect. I just doubt whether he has a clear enough football philosophy, whether the tactical ability is there. I'm not saying he's a Jurgen Klinsmann where there's absolutely zero tactics, but is he known for being, like a Lee Jong-yo or a Kim Ki-dong, where their football tactics, they're able to get the best out of the players with a low budget, year after year? I don't think that's Hong Myung-bo. I could definitely be convinced if he was hired, but he's just not in the A tier for me. Quickly to talk about Lee Jong-yo and Kim Ki-dong, I think they are fantastic K-League managers. Lee Jong-yo with Gwangju, who are playing Brighton style football, building up from the back. Everything's so fluid, so creative, so attacking. But I think he wants to have a little bit more time with Gwangju. They just made the Asian Champions League. He has aspirations of managing abroad as well. I think it would be early to hire him as Korean national team manager and unfair for him as well, especially in this toxic environment. And same goes for Kim Ki-dong. He's a bit more experienced than Lee Jong-yo. He was fantastic when he was the manager of Pohang. He's now the manager of FC Seoul, who recently just transferred in Lingard. It's just unfair again for him to ask him to be manager of the Korean national team when he just took over for FC Seoul, and he's preparing for a new season. But in terms of candidate profile wise, I think they are really great fits for the Korean national team. The foreign manager dream category, guys, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Jose Mourinho, I love. He's not, I will admit, he doesn't play the attacking, fluid football that I want. But strictly in terms of professionalism, just you're going to get 100% effort from him. And right now, when our Korean national team is in shambles, there seems to be no type of structure or hierarchy, organization in the KFA. I think Jose Mourinho would come in with this charismatic, demanding attitude, and he could fix a lot of the systemic issues in the KFA, or at the very least expose them and go out with a bang. So I personally am a huge fan of Jose Mourinho. All his players love him. We've seen that if you followed his career. Would be a dream candidate for me as well. Jurgen Klopp, of course, one of the best managers in the world right now, is set to leave Liverpool at the end of the summer. Would be incredible, but never coming to Korea. Marcelo Bielsa was suggested. He's currently the manager of Uruguay right now. I don't see them moving on from Marcelo Bielsa, so he's unavailable. But in terms of the charismatic personality, his preference for attacking football, high pressing football, absolutely love that. Hansi Flick was mentioned, I think, by Aaron. I don't love Hansi Flick. I think he is quite overrated. He had one brief stint with Bayern that was amazing for sure. But then if you look at his time with Germany, it was just an utter failure. And I'm not an expert in terms of football tactics or analytics, but from what I've seen from the experts was that he is actually quite an overrated manager. And there's just something about German managers, guys, that doesn't match with Korea. We saw it with Uli Stielike, we saw it with Jurgen Klinsmann. I don't want to continue the trend with Hansi Flick, so he's a red for me. No, thank you. Going on to the most intriguing category, guys, the foreign candidates who could be realistic targets for us. Starting with Hervé Renard, I think he is an excellent, perhaps one of the most excellent candidates for us to lead our national team going forward. He is both, he has clear football philosophy. He's won two Continental Cups in Africa. He was the manager when Saudi Arabia beat Argentina in the World Cup in 2022. And he has that strong, motivating, charismatic personality that we're looking for. The only caveat with Hervé Renard is he's under contract until August of this year. He's currently the manager of the French women's Olympic team, I believe. But if we're willing to have an interim manager until then, and then hire Hervé Renard, who, by the way, was interested in the Korean national team job before, then I think he could be a really great candidate for us, and he's definitely one to keep an eye on. Moving on to the next candidate, Peter. I don't know how to pronounce the last name, unfortunately, but he was the manager of Tajikistan, who were incredible this Asian Cup. I love the idea. I love the idea of getting a manager from a lower Asian side and seeing if they can replicate their success in Korea. I think he's just too much of an unknown. And the thing with Korean fans and also media is I think they'd be quick to jump on him if he doesn't get to a fast start, just because he doesn't have the experience of even a guy like Lee Jong-yo or Kim Ki-dong who we're familiar with in the K-League, or Hervé Renard, who we've seen won trophies in Africa and multiple experiences in the World Cup as well. I I personally would love to give a guy like Peter, again, don't know how to pronounce the last name, but I would love to give a guy like this a chance. But I don't see it really being a realistic option for the KFA. Rui Vitória, I believe he's the former manager of Egypt. Fortunately, do not know much about him, so he was in the yellow category. Jose Pizarro, he was the manager of the Nigerian national team who made it to the finals against AFCON. I think I'm not a expert in African football, but I believe that Nigeria actually didn't play particularly well in that tournament. And I briefly looked at Jose Pizarro's career, and he never lasted for more than 2 or 3 years in with any team. So I'm worried about the longevity issue, and also just an unknown there. He wasn't really amazing with Nigeria. Sampaoli, I believe he's a South American manager. Not familiar with him, but I know that he has had a great career. He's managed in Europe before and also national teams such as Chile and Argentina. So he's an intriguing name, just didn't know much about him. Diego Martinez, there was like two or three of them. Didn't really know which one our follower was referring to. Bruno Lage, former manager of Benfica, and he actually managed Hwang Hee-chan in Wolverhampton. I think he's an intriguing candidate. He's definitely on the downturn of his career. Like he had a lot of success with Benfica, came to the Premier League, middling results, and then now he's in Brazil. He's not doing well in Brazil. But that's the kind of manager that we have to target. Realistically, we can't afford a manager who's at the prime or pinnacle of their career. It just costs too much money. And with that type of success, they'd be garnering interest from other bigger nations or European teams. That's exactly how we got Paulo Bento, who had a lot of success with Portugal, had a lot of success with Sporting Lisbon, but he was kind of at the downturn of his career. He failed in China, and he was looking to use Korea as a stepping stone and return back to his former heights. And that's the profile that I love to see. I don't mind Korea being a stepping stone as long as we both mutually benefit from it. And if a guy like Bruno Lage, who has experience managing Benfica and Wolverhampton, big teams, wants to manage Korea and wants to put in 100% effort to revive his career, then I'm all for it. So Bruno Lage, intriguing for me. Hasenhuttl, I also really like. I've actually liked him since his Southampton days. Just the fact that he managed Southampton for so long speaks magnitudes about him, I think. And also, he plays a really attractive style of football. I've always loved how Southampton played under him. So he's definitely a green for me. The thing is, I think he's been out of work for a little bit, but I'd have to double check that. Ramon Diaz, I was unfamiliar with, so it was a yellow. Steve Cooper for me, I love that idea, guys. Whoever suggested that. He honestly, I think he was Nottingham Forest unfairly fired him. I thought he was doing really, really good with Nottingham Forest. It was like they had that one transfer window where they brought in like what 10, 15 new players and told Steve Cooper to make it work out. Like that's impossible. So I think he's a great manager. In terms of his football philosophy, I'm personally not an expert on the tactics, but from what I've read following the Premier League, everyone was raving about him. So I love that idea. The thing is, I wonder if he'd come to Korea. I think having managed in the Premier Leagues so recently, other Premier League teams might be looking at him, or even a championship side who's looking to get promoted to the Premier League might be looking at him. And I don't think that we'd be able to compete for a signature. Sergio Conceição, or however you pronounce his name, Portuguese manager Porto. I think honestly he's in this dream category. He's doing really well for Porto. He's managed them for a while. He plays more defensive football, but at least the football philosophy is quite strong. I think the personality he matches criteria one as well. Don't know too much about him, but the fact that he's managed Porto for so long and has had good results, he's definitely a green for me, but just not a realistic candidate. And finally, someone mentioned Paulo Bento coming back. Would love to see that. I think that I always wonder what would have happened if Paulo Bento never left the Korean national team and was given the opportunity to build on the 4 years that he already had with Korea. He he fits criteria one, two, and three. Every player loved playing for Bento, or at the very least, we never saw complaints about Bento. He was harsh, but he was always fair, and he genuinely loved all his players. And when you saw, I don't know if you guys saw, but when he left Korea at the airport, he genuinely shed tears because he appreciated his time in Korea, and you could feel how much he loved Korea. The ultimate professional, absolutely has a clear philosophy, absolutely plays attacking football. Would he come back to Korea and deal with the KFA? I wouldn't if I were him. And I think UAE are happy to give him another chance even after a disappointing Asian Cup. So, great idea for him to come back. I just don't think it's realistic. So yeah, guys, that brings us to the end of this video. Just a quick informal chat about the options there. I'm sure there's so many more that hopefully the KFA will look at in the coming weeks. I think that right now, at this moment in time, they're favoring a domestic manager. Some names that were thrown out were Hong Myung-bo was thrown out, Kim Do-hoon. I heard whispers of Park Hang-seo being an interim manager. Choi Young-soo, who's out of work. None of those names really inspire me. The end of the day, I really don't care who the manager is. What I'm looking for is a system that's in place that that we can create a short list, that we can interview everyone on the short list and then choose the best manager for us. I don't want the KFA president to unilaterally choose our national team manager for us just because he thinks Jurgen Klinsmann is a superstar and will help the brand of Korean football and possibly help him in the next FIFA elections. I don't want that. I want us to have a clear system in place, and that system is there to minimize the risk and minimize the opportunity for a manager to fail. And whoever gets chosen based on that list, if it is a fair, transparent process, I will absolutely 100% get behind. So the name personally does not matter to me. It's just the process that I want to see get fixed by the KFA. But yeah, guys, thanks for watching the video. Make sure to like and subscribe to Bibbing Ballers. and I'll catch you guys in the next one.